Public perception is a fascinating phenomenon. The way it is shaped, developed, molded, and at times manipulated is often outside of our control. Positive public perceptions can take quite some time to develop and maintain. However, when negative public perceptions exist, for whatever reasons they exist, they often require Herculean efforts to overcome. Efforts that often feel Sisyphean, and many times, much like Sisyphus and his rock, negative public perceptions can never be overcome. In the mid-2000s, I was a young teacher at my alma mater teaching English at John Muir High School here in Pasadena, California. I graduated 10 years earlier, and things had changed much in that time. As a student in the 90s at Muir, the public perception of the school as the ghetto school in Pasadena was already starting to form. We were called the hood school, the bad school in a bad neighborhood. However, my classmates and I ignored those pejoratives and thoroughly enjoyed our time before moving on to higher education. But when I came back to teach at Muir in 2005, the perception of Muir as an inferior academic institution worsened. Middle-class families started to abandon the school. The population began to shrink, and Muir's public status as the bad school in Pasadena was fully embedded into the psyche of the city. In just my second year as a teacher, the California Department of Education dropped a bombshell, issuing a declaration that it would begin monitoring Muir High School due to consecutive years of low state test scores. The state was very clear. The CDE needed to step in to ensure that improvements were made. It wasn't a state takeover, but they made it crystal clear. Muir High School needed to turn around. As a teacher, an alumnus, and a parent whose sons would be attending Muir in a few short years, I was embarrassed, ashamed, beyond concerned. What could we do to turn this thing around? How could we even do it? Could it even be done? In 2007 and 2008, the Pasadena Unified School District responded by instituting a reconstitution of the school. They made the entire faculty reapply for their jobs and created 3 small learning communities on campus called academies. These academies were centered around college and career pathways. In the process, several long-term faculty members, many of whom attended Muir themselves, were either let go or chose to move on with other opportunities. In one fell swoop, over half of our teachers were gone, and a new batch of educators was brought in. Many assumed the Reconstitution was the answer. They thought new blood would help jumpstart a new beginning and turn the school around. Things did improve, slightly, and test scores did rise, just a bit, enough for the CDE to stop its monitoring of the school. Ultimately, however, the Reconstitution was not the complete answer. The negative public perception of the school was so ingrained in the minds of the community that it was hard to rebuild the school's population and difficult to attract middle-class families that had left years before. While I only have 10 minutes here to discuss the 100-year history of a school and how such a strong negative public perception was created, I'd like to direct you once, when you get a chance, to watch a documentary on this very subject from 2024 entitled, Can We All Get Along? Created and directed by 1982 Muir alumnus Pablo Miralles. In the documentary, Pablo examines the history of the school, the community at large, and the city, and makes the case that systemic classism and racism brought Muir to its standing in the mid-2000s when the state began to monitor the school. The documentary is available to be viewed on PBS. A few years after Pablo started his decade-long project of documenting Muir's history, a couple of major events took place. Events that would not only stem the city's negative perception of the school, but in fact would completely turn that perception on its head. In 2018, the school district partnered with the local junior college, Pasadena City College, to create an early college magnet program. This dual enrollment program allowed high school students to take college-level courses during the traditional school hours. The goal of this program was not merely to offer students an opportunity to be exposed to college courses and potentially save money in the future by reducing their class load in college, but it was also a way to attract middle-class families back to the school. That same year, the district also hired a new principal, Dr. Lawton Gray. Dr. Gray, a friend of mine, and a 1993 Muir alumnus, a Morehouse man, and a 20-year educator and administrator, was just what the school needed. He and I attended Muir together in the 1990s, and he is what we Muir Mustangs like to refer to as a real stang. We sat down for lunch when he was hired to talk about what it would take to turn the negative public perception of the school around. I'll never forget his words. He said, "Fredo, it's the 4 C's: care, culture, commitment, and consistency. I need people at Muir who care deeply about this school. I also need people to help curate a positive culture on campus. I need people to be committed. I need people to want to stay. I need people to be consistent in their pursuit of turning things around, because that is exactly what I'm going to do myself." And he hit the ground running hard. He hired a fantastic staff of over 40 people who are alumni of the school. People who care. He hired athletic coaches and gave them on-campus jobs and placed dedicated people in campus activity positions to help create a strong campus culture. And he hired staff who didn't live too far from the campus, people who would be committed because they wouldn't leave work early to beat traffic, and they wouldn't leave to take jobs closer to their homes. He attended every single community event, gathering, and meeting that he possibly could. He's even here today, standing in the corner. As he is now, he always is donning the school's colors and logos everywhere he went, and told his staff to do the same. With orders, always remember, you represent Muir every single time you wear that logo. Consistency. After a few years, things began to change. People started to notice. Things were different at the school. Even the pandemic wasn't strong enough to impede the progress. The population of the school started to rise. Middle-class families were coming back in droves. Along with their high school diplomas, several students earned AA degrees while in high school from Pasadena City College. And Muir was even recognized recently as one of the top schools in all of California. As one of the top schools in California in UC admission rates. Even the recent Eaton fires can't slow us down. While several of our students lost homes and were displaced, hundreds in fact, the school continues to persevere. We kicked our 4 C's into overdrive shortly after the fires to support our most vulnerable students and their families. And because of Dr. Gray, the Early College Magnet Program, a dedicated faculty and staff, and those 4 C's, next year, for the first time in over 100 years, Muir will have the largest population of all of the high schools in Pasadena. Even besting its rival, PHS, Pasadena, for the first time in school history. The mayor, who will be speaking shortly, is a Bulldog alum. My condolences to him. But we have changed, and we have turned this public perception on its head. In just under 8 years, John Muir High School has persevered and shattered a negative public perception that had been built over decades, a feat that would even make Hercules and Sisyphus proud. Thank you.